Hello there, and welcome to my little arty corner of YouTube. It's Friday, the 18th of February, and it's been a couple of days since I made a video. It seems that yesterday I had another obligation that took me most of the day, and afterwards I was absolutely shattered. So I do apologise for no video yesterday, because I usually would do one on a Thursday to do with Template Thursday. It just didn't happen this week. And Wednesdays I said I'm not doing videos for a time, because I've got to get the right kind of balance back in my day. It takes quite a bit of my day to, it's not the filming that's the problem, it's everything else. It's the editing, the uploading and what have you. So I need to use my time a bit, my time distributed in a different way. In the meantime, I have been playing around with stop motion animation, having a great deal of fun with it. It was an idea that I came up with when I woke up with it on Wednesday morning, and it really doesn't take a lot of time to do these fun little animations, and I'd like to do more of that perhaps. And you may have noticed already there was a bit here. Got to learn how to put sound effects in. That's my next step, but it's one little step at a time with me. So I hope you're keeping well. I hope you're going to enjoy this video, that you're going to join in drawing or have a go at drawing some of the variations on a fragment, because it is Fragment Friday. So it's the day I get to play with a single fragment and see what I can do with it. If you do like this video, if you enjoy what you see, could you please give a thumbs up? And if you'd like to know when I release videos, then subscribe anyway if you like my videos, and hit the bell button so you get notifications. And I appreciate everybody's lovely comments. It's wonderful to see. So with no further ado, I shall go back to what looks like Feld 18th of Feld 2022. Yeah, my hand and eye coordination isn't great. It's quarter to midday where I am, and I haven't been awake for that long, because I woke up in the night and I ended up going back to sleep, and I just slept through till 10:30, something like that, exhausted. So the fragment I've picked today is a tangle pattern called Holly, and I completely forgot to write the name of the person who came up with it. I will do that in the description box. I will, you know, in the title with whatever. But it goes like this. So we start, let me just move over a bit, with a box. This is in its original form, and I will zoom in just a tad. There, that's better, isn't it? And I will then split the box with a diagonal line. I want to imagine a line going from the other two corners to corners, and I'm going to put a little dot about equidistant along that line, and then just draw curved lines to that dot, which will then disappear into those lines. Then in these corners where there is nothing, I'm going to pop two little circles, which I suppose represent holly berries. This grids beautifully. It's one of my favourite grids, though I don't use it often, but shadow will help to create this sense that these shapes are curling up and over in either direction and putting shadow underneath. So let's have a play with this particular fragment and see where we can go. I'm using an 03 micron pen today. I'm beginning to wish I had thought about using a 05. I don't know why. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw. Oh, that wasn't very good, was it? That's not what I wanted to do. It was this. Okay, we'll leave it as it is, because yeah, it's okay, because I was going to do this anyway, so it's fine. So I've drawn a box within a box with that leaf, that inner leaf being on top of it. And this is a really, really simple variation to do to help to introduce that sense of volume or dimension, layers. Instantly we've got a fragment that feels like it's got a lot more depth to it than this one. This is lovely, don't get me wrong, I love it. And it's the colour and shadow that will give that the volume and dimension. This one, that graphic nature of black, really, really does help it. Okay, let's go again. Oh, it's a bit more of an oblong, or rectangle if you prefer. So we've got this. So I auraed the box. How about auraing the inside of the leaf? And I'll perhaps pop these in, but create them as little berries, little black berries with a little highlight. So to do that, it's a circle. Oops, I'm off camera. Problems with zooming in. I've drawn a circle and I just draw another circle at the top, attaching it, and then the rest is filled in either with all black, which I find a bit of a pain to do, but if you draw these big enough you can also add lines instead and use contour lines that follow the shape of the object to give it that greater sense of volume, and that can be made black if you wish. So it depends how big you draw this fragment. So they're a lot bigger than this one as well, so that's quite fun. See if I can draw a better square this time. Still a bit wonky. Said I really haven't come around. I'm going to put the dots, we're going to join these really, really close to the corner, so there's going to be no berries in this one. A lot more space for other stuff. So I'm going to put an inner aura of the leaves. I think I'm going to try this, where I'm going to put a box outside of the original box, and I'm just going to reach around for my pencil case because I want a broader pen to fill the black space in, because it's a pain with an 03. It's a bit of a pain with an 05. This is a Unipin 05, and it's the nib's been a bit used and abused, so I don't mind using it for things like this. I ought to keep one just for this and label it as sort of like used and abused only for background colouring. That would be a very big label and a very silly one. Just a bit of washi tape would do the job. Sparkly washi tape perhaps, so I notice. So it's a bit like this, but there's a lot more black. And the leaf isn't overlying the outer border. So that's fun. Okay, one more. You do know I'm going to try other shapes, don't you? Okay, I will do this. I think I'm going to, yeah, I'm going to do the same. I'm going to put the dots there. I'm going to do a really big swoop like this. I'm really going to exaggerate that arch quite a bit, and then I'm going to draw a border in like that. And these places here, I said there's no space for berries in one like this. Well, there's space, there's always space for this pattern called perk, which is made up of little balls, which don't have to be perfectly spherical because we're squashing them in. And it creates a different pattern along the edge. I'm still on camera because I'm turning this around. Oh. 2 days away, and I have trouble remembering this when I'm doing this every day to check that I'm in frame. Or the camera's capturing what I'm doing. And there is no hope for me, so that gives a different feel. I think with this one I would be tempted to pop an aura like that as well. Shadow will help to pick that out, but that's another variation. So we've got a little string of square ones. Okay, I think I'll do another kind of fragment. It would be one that you get if you were to put 4 boxes together, but this way we're not going to have boxes. I'm going to pop in these, because this is where, these are our imaginary boxes, and this is where I'm going to put the points of each leaf. So we work on them as if they're one at a time. And here, and there, and there, there, and there. So it's almost like there's pairs of dots on either side of the pencil line. We want the points of these little holly leaves to go. And I quite like this without the extra lines in, that if we drew those, if those lines were drawn in with ink, it gives a much bigger kind of separation, whereas here it looks almost like a sprig of holly. And we've got these lovely spaces here where we can pop berries in, like so. So it is a variation. It's a more complicated fragment, but I think it would look nice and tiled. I would like to leave, add that border around as well, to give separation from the tile next door, but either way it would work. I think it's lovely. Okay, I'm trying to think, yeah. Instead of diagonally, how about doing this horizontally? Again, think of where we want the points to be along a line and draw the lines like that. And then this way, you could have them all going the same way, or alternating in lines, or rotating around the point, arranged in that kind of way, but you'd have it on a horizontal form. And this gives a lot more space around the shape. I did those with dots with a little bit of space around them, here and here, but with this you could actually take these right up to the border of the square like that. And berries, ginormous ones, small one here, smallish one here, or I'm guessing we could most probably fit a number of squished ones in. I say I'm guessing, I'm not guessing, I know we can. Just depends what kind of effect you want. And so I'll do that. I'll do this again and have those dots in the centre of the other lines roughly. It's not critical if they're not central, but how about if we do the square behind again. This time I'm just going to shade it in with some lines. So I like stark black, but there's nothing wrong with putting filler patterns in, like little tipples would be quite nice in there, or Bronx cheer or some such thing as well. Spirals, whatever you like to do. I'm just going to add these here. Just looking at what we haven't done, we've done inner auras of the leaves, so I'll do it on the bottom side for comparison. But there's absolutely nothing wrong in perhaps doing auras like this. I'm going to pop the corner piece in and then just simply add some lines in there. So another way of creating pattern. You can do a lot more with these spaces on this version because they're bigger than on this one. These, I didn't take these out to the corner, did I? So let's have a look and see what happens if we do that. So we get that. No space again for beads. I was off camera, wasn't I? I'll do it again. So right up to the corner. And this is a fragment in the primer, but it doesn't look like holly because it's the holly, the original fragment, because there's no space there. But it's how we bring things out, isn't it? So I think here, let's put shapes like this, and if we have one next door, you can imagine across this gap, we could actually join them up to create whole berries going across that line, which would be a good argument to draw the grid in, the reticulum in pencil, because then you can get rid of those pencil lines and have whole berries if you wish. I know it's not the Zentangle way method, everything's done in pen except for the string in the pure Zentangle form, but you can do as you wish. So that's another way of getting berries in and having quite a big leaf. So there's that. What about other shapes then? Well, if we go to a circle, that's quite simple. So we can put the dots in and we can pop the leaf in. So these circles could go within a square. As a different way of constructing the pattern. And you could even have the line diagonal or horizontal. Creates an interesting fragment. I've never put, all the times I've done fragments, well, since January, with the Fragments of Your Imagination, I've never sort of done this, put square to circle, but it's quite fun to do. So I prefer, I think, the horizontal or the vertical version. The diagonal one, I don't know, I could be wrong, but you know, they would work in different ways. So that's quite nice to do. And again, there's space here to put berries wherever you like. You know, could pop them on the corners here, or we could pop them here, giving variations. And of course, anything we can do with squares in terms of adding pattern and embellishment, we can do here. This one, I'm going to add an aura outside that circle, but within the square. And then I can add these little lines here, perhaps to give that feeling that this is being raised up by some struts or otherwise. Here, I think I'll just pop a couple of beads there. Beads. I keep saying beads. Why do I say beads? I know why. I've been looking at what kinds of shapes beads come in, particularly wooden beads, because they're really interesting shapes. Yeah, I know. I'm off on one. Beads and greeblies and other interesting objects and shapes and parts of objects. A greebly, if you don't know, because I watch an awful lot of stuff. I watch an awful lot of makers on YouTube and I admire their skills, but don't have the desire to do them, because it makes a lot of mess, and often you have to use things that would not be sensible for me to use, like hot glue guns and power tools. No, it's not a good idea. Anything I can seriously injure myself with, it ain't going to happen. But greeblies are little bits left over from things like model kits or bits and pieces of other objects that you use to embellish a model, to put together, to create surface texture and interest. So if you're familiar with Star Wars, for example, the Millennium Falcon, Han Solo's ship, if you get a close-up look at that, you can see all the structures and things on there. They're basically greeblies, little bits of old kits, like Airfix kits, or there's another brand, I can't remember, a couple of brands. The bits are left over, or they've bought kits just to use for these bits. And it creates an amazingly interesting, very industrial or mechanical kind of, structure. But you can do it with anything, and anything you can use to embellish is fine in such things, if it gives the desired effect or an interesting effect. So I've been looking at those because I love pattern. I love different things. And so I thought I need to have a look at these things. So I've started a section off in my book of sort of like beads and greeblies and other interesting things, because that's what it'll be, just little bits of patterns that I can use in different ways. And it's observational skills as well, and practice for shading if I wanted to, and adding colour and so on. Right, so circles. Variation on a circle really is a leaf shape because it's like a pointy oval. I wouldn't even try to do, well, we'll have a look at horizontal and you can make your mind up whether you like the horizontal. I actually like this, and with this one I'd be tempted to leave that middle bit out. Well, no, perhaps not, because if I put a berry in the middle, it starts to look a little bit like a seed pod. These bits are the bits of the seed pod opening and curling outwards, perhaps. Shadow would help to bring that out. Let's have a look at it going the other way. So if I draw the line here, we're going to have the leaves going up to here and here. Oh, I don't know, that works quite nicely as well. It's this, but yeah, I can see it can work. Had a bit of interest in the middle. So that would work quite nicely. So we've gone from it feeling like a leaf to creating patterns that are quite different. And I said here about not having a line in, and of course that is completely possible because we go from corner to corner. So if we put the dots in where we want the points of the leaves, we get this shape. It feels a bit odd because you'd want to get these to connect to the corners. Well, you could do that with the berries like that. And then we've got this as an inner space to use for other stuff, including perhaps putting a huge berry bead or whatever in there. Filling in with black because I like the graphic nature of black, but there's enough space in a fragment this big to actually put little lines and so on in. So that's a possibility as well. And I can do that with circle. This one, I'm taking the points of the leaves rather than the start and end of the leaf, quite a way in from the edge of the circle, so it looks like it's being deliberately not connected. That works. I think that works better than in a square, because in a square you've got those distinct corners where you feel you want to add something perhaps, or maybe it's just that I need a, look at that, we're going to do this. I'm going to pop a pencil line in. Perhaps it just needs to be overly exaggerated. So there's that distinct space there. It says, yeah, that's deliberate. The other one, it could be a misstroke of the pen. So circles, ovals. Variation on an oval is a teardrop shape. Oh, just off camera, sorry. So again, I'm going to do this top and bottom, but I'm going to think about where the centre here is, because we could have it central to the line, or we could look at the shape. Let's look at the shape and pop the points of these leaves towards the bottom. We get, it's more of a kite shape inside, isn't it? But that feels a bit more balanced than, say, I don't know, sometimes you just have to try it, don't you, to see. That's about halfway down that central line. Yeah, they both work. I quite like this one, changing that shape. And that would be something that could be done in a circle quite easily. I'm going to put the central shape in, but we could create that, which is quite interesting. I like that. I like the asymmetry with this particular version. You could do it in a square, but I think in a square it would feel really awkward because the square is so symmetrical. You could try it if you wanted to. I'm not going to, because correction, rather than put it on my page, how about if I do it here? Let's have a look. Square. So instead of here, how about if we put the places for the leaves up here? Actually, no, that makes an interesting shape, so let's add that one in. There's me, proved wrong again. Okay, I will put this line in, and perhaps this is the line there. I want this one parallel, really, and this will really exaggerate that shape, but that actually is quite nice. I like that. I do like that. And in fact, I think it could be interesting if, oh, I've worked out this one. I'll split these up. And perhaps we put two here, but we pop these in. And then that one, and we get a kind of shell shape. So that's a variation, you know, if it's going in a completely different direction. It's quite fun. I'll leave that line if I come up with ideas for circles or teardrop shapes or squares based on other shapes. So the next one, I just move myself along a bit. Triangle. Ew. You can split a triangle this way if you want symmetry. You could split it this way if you want asymmetry. We're going with symmetry like this. And halfway along the sides, it will fit in quite nicely. And I think it would fit in quite nicely if we took the corners of the leaves up to the sides. So halfway along the sides, like that. And then we've got these areas and shapes to play with. I also think this would be really nice if we have that central point. I'll put it in as like a berry, join these up, and then pop the leaves in. The leaves aren't all the same shape. We've got the shorter one at the top. That's quite nice. So let's have a look at doing this. But perhaps having this circle here lower down. So instead of being in the centre up here, move it down a bit, because that will give, this line will be the same length as these others. And that gives a much more symmetrical feel to that variation. That's nice. That's interesting, but this is nice. It's the difference in these shapes that make this a bit awkward, but this is a fragment that think we've done what I've done in the past. So how about doing half leaves, and then when you put another fragment next door, whether you leave a gap or not, we create a full leaf. So if I do one where we join them without a gap, we'll get a series of leaves. You can either look at the central bit or you can look at the leaves where those patterns join. So that's a nice way of doing that. Okay, as I always say, if we can do one thing with one shape, we can often do it with another. So I'm going to pop these shapes in like this. This may be a bit awkward because I'm working on a very small space here, but what I can do is pop this one's awkward because I did not take this one out as far as I wanted to, and fill that in like there's a little triangle underneath, or to fill in the complete space, so it's the same kind of thing. Have a look at the triangle again. Pop one here. I'll do this central line, but I'm going to do that kind of kite shape. And that feels that it fits in here better, and I'll do a variation on this. So what I've done is I've put the guiding dots for the points of the leaves much lower down, so that we're going to get, in this case much higher up, close to the base of the triangle, further away from the point, like this. And then if we join those together, it gives an interesting shape there. Now that's similar to a fragment I looked at, or we worked with in the Fragments of Your Imagination. So that's interesting. This one's almost like we've got something opening up and folding out there, which is, I like that. Okay, I'm looking at anything else, and if there's anything up here now I could do with any of these others. Not entirely sure. Okay, hexagons, it'll work, and there are two ways. Oh gosh, we've got extremely high winds here today, and in some areas there's a possibility of them being what's considered hurricane force. It's Storm Eunice has hit here, and the weather forecast was so bad for the winds and the risk of damage and risk to life that schools have closed. There's no public transport running to keep people safe on the roads and transportation, and people have been asked to stay home and stay in the house until this clears, not to go out unless it's absolutely essential. And it's the first time I can ever remember this being asked of this kind of weather in the UK. It's due to ease off towards the later afternoon, but it's really windy. Where I am, it's not actually hitting the front or the back of the house particularly, but I'm getting gusts where you can feel it catching, getting under the roof and things like that, not damaging it, but getting through the spaces where there are for ventilation up in the loft. And outside, it's crazy, the wind, it really is. So I'm happy to stay indoors today. I had to drive, for me, these days, a fair distance yesterday, which was a 50-odd mile round trip. I haven't driven that far, well, only a couple of times since lockdown, usually to my accountant's, but I had to do something else yesterday. And that's quite a trial after not driving so far. Before the pandemic, I'd regularly drive 1,000, over 1,000 miles a month. And nowadays, I barely get to 100, it seems. Absolutely bonkers. Okay, to go back to this. So there are two ways of splitting a hexagon, really, to keep its mirror symmetry. Top to bottom is one. Now I could do, I'll do this on one side because that leaf shape would fit in quite nicely, but what we could do is to make use of these points. Imagine them going to the centre of the hexagon and draw the dot there, and then dot to dot with curved lines. So that is much more like a holly leaf. I'll do another one underneath. This one we will, oh, you can't see, move up Angela. So I've drawn this one. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to use the points, the corners, to actually draw that particular holly leaf. So that works. I guess it depends whether you want it to feel more like a leaf. This has got a different feel about it, as if it's a different kind of pattern. This one, I'll draw both sides in this way because that works nicely. But let's have a look and see if we can do this in that same kind. It's not going to be quite the same kind of way here, I think. We get a different kind of shape of leaf. I'm not quite sure about that one, but it's always worth, as I've just discovered with that square that I didn't think it was going to work in up here, but sometimes it's worth a go even if you think it's not going to work. I couldn't envisage this one until I did it, so I would stick with this. And again, these are going to be really interesting if we don't put that central line in. And we could pop them in like that as well. That is really lovely. I'll show you again because I really do like that. Is an unexpected one. So I'm starting in the center of these opposite sides. I'm going up to that one, to there, to there, to there. But it would be the same if we were going from the point to the point. It's just this rotated around. So I like that. That I really like as well. Lots of opportunities here for doing other things. These shapes, they're a bit odd, but I think when you've got a number of hexagons going round together, let me draw some that are joined together. Practicing my old organic chemistry skill of drawing benzene rings. All joined together. I can't remember what they're called now. I was about to draw benzene rings. But when we draw them like this, I'm going to draw them all the way around in exactly the same fashion, just to see what happens. I'm trying to work out if we get an interesting meta pattern there. Not that way, but perhaps I can see sort of like a sort of like strange kind of zigzaggy kind of line there. Let's see what happens if I do this, where we go there and then, okay. Now I'm doing the same thing over, aren't I? Yeah. I was trying to think how this... Oh, yeah, sorry. How about if we go... That's it. We rotate round that this central point. Can you see here? If I draw I'm looking for the opposite ones, so how would that work? Point, oh yeah, the centre, cross, centre, down, and then from here to here to here to there to there. And let me just do another couple down here so we can see how they work out. So this point will go to the centre there, centre there. We haven't got a point here though, have we? I'm confused. Do that one. So the definite joining together here and here. There's not here, but perhaps. I don't want to start here because that would create a disjoint. So perhaps if I popped that one in like that, then you get some weird shapes here. Yeah, I'm not sure that'll work. I'm not sure that's going to work as a repeating pattern. I don't know. I'm confused. I'm easily confused, it has to be said. Okay, last shape. Because the ginkgo leaf shapes like this are essentially triangles. So I do that. And we have the a more rounded triangle, which I'd pop lines in and then do the leaves perhaps with that one, which would work nicely. But there's this one here. So I'm going to go wobbly with this one. And fit a leaf in there, because that would work. In fact, I wonder if that S-shaped line would work in something like this, perhaps. To give a different feel to that centre of that leaf. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not entirely, entirely sure about that. I wonder if it'd work here, though. I think it could work in the middle of ones like that, just for a variation. Possibly. But definitely shape, if I go back to the square, if instead of putting a straight line in, we put a long thin rice shape and then pop this in, that's a variation as well. And that calls out for seeds all the way along it, because it looks like a seed pod almost. What it does to me, because everything turns into seed pods. But it also reminded me almost of a manta ray. Almost. It's the wings coming off the side here. So there's a gracious pile of, and I'll just zoom out so we can see the whole sheet. Gracious pile of fragments to try out. And yes, there are some gaps and spaces here. There are. So I think it's going to be time for me to, what time? Done 45 minutes. So I'll very quickly grab what colour is that? I've got a violet one, that'll be okay. A chalk pastel here. The sun's out again and the wind's high. And let's have a look. I said about this one, I'm going to add some shadow along the middle. My paper stump's mucky, but it'll work for this. Actually, it's fine. It's not picking up any other colour. There must be a colour on this end that works nicely with purple. So I've got that, and if I pop some shadow underneath, perhaps. Yeah, I've lost the that bright edge. But no matter, I have my magic eraser here. Kneadable erasers are great. I don't know where my Tombow Mono eraser is. It's a very fine eraser, but that helps a bit. I think this would actually need to be quite a bit darker under here to really get this illusion of shadow underneath and this rising up. You can always go back and add more. So there's that one. This one I could do the same along the central part and just have a subtle shadow there. That's better. That's what I should have done on that one. Any others? Something like this. It's always useful, I think, to put the shadow at a point and gradually work it out a little at a time, just to create a kind of sense of this disappearing inwards. This is one of those strange shapes. It's the Pangaea tangle pattern, and so it's about putting shadow as if it's a hole, thinking about where there'd be shadow around the edges, but mainly the light's coming from this direction. The light's not going to get in this bit, but some of it may leak down into this bit, and so just creating that. I'm not going to try to do anything with my failed attempt at a reticulated pattern. I think it would work all right if this is just repeated all the way along, to be honest, like this one. And we've got the strange shapes going on in between, but I don't know. See, I like to use things like this as individual, what I call motifs in my patterns. So instead of putting them in a grid, I'd use them almost like gems or, tokens of some kind, something that's quite quite individual and special. So here I'm going to pop some shading shadow underneath this so that the rest of the triangle fades backwards and that leaf is lifted up so it stands out. I mean, I'm doing this with purple because it's the first chalk pastel that came to hand, because I didn't think to get one out at the beginning. I think with these ones, I think I'd put some shadow in these bits here, so it looks like we've got something that's been folded up. And that, rotated round would create an interesting shape, and I think it would be really interesting because it would work really, really well in a triangle, wouldn't it? These little shapes here rotated all the way around. That'd be fun. I'm going to shadow under this one. I'm going to add some shadow inside up here. So this feels, I'm going to fade it up a little bit here, not too much, because I want this to be darker here. So I'm playing with space here and the feeling of that this point here is further away than the outside bit, but but the point at the bottom is closer. That's the idea. Anyway, and it might need a bit more darkness there just to help with that, because I do like to bend space when I'm adding colour. It's true, I do. There we go, just a bit like that. Okie dokie. I like the way when I use these background patterns that I've put in with Distress Ink, stenciled patterns, show through here just a bit. So you put a lot in, you lose it. It's hardly able to see that one there, but it's quite fun. Okay, any others that I could do? Not really, I think. Actually there. That one I did these ones here. I don't want the shadow there. So what I've done here is I've put shadow underneath the square here, the bottom, and at the top I'm putting the darkest shadow at the edge of the circle that's there. Again, I've added a bit too much and spread it out a bit too much. That's the beauty of things like this, you can erase them. So that gives a different kind of feel there. It's just playing around with them. This is what pages like this are brilliant for. I get to play with shadow and highlight, with colour, with pattern, without the pressure of having to create something, to use it in an image, in a drawing. And then I've got these then as reference, and I learned from adding shadow. This was probably one of the better versions of this I've done. Yeah, I say versions of this, the way of shadowing this kind of hole in the paper. It's one of my better attempts at it. So I'm learning as I go along, but others it gives me ideas, like this one I really like. This one can work, but I have to be a bit more careful with where I put the shadow and highlight. But it's all part and parcel of it. It's just playing around with things, having fun, and letting go of that fear of failure. Because even when you fail, you learn something. Like, this hasn't worked out for me. I think this is a fail. But I've learned that sometimes things just don't repeat. It's just that kind of thing where you think it's a good idea. Correction. I've learned that it's always a good idea to try things out, because you never know. If I go back to this one, you might actually find that you like what you thought wasn't going to work, and I do like that. That's interesting. I'm trying to think how I can enhance this. I think by putting the shadow inside here. So let's have a look. It almost feels like it's curving now. So we're catching all the light on this side, and this is a bit further away. Not sure if that's working well, but that's how it's feeling. So I'm going to say thank you ever so much for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed this rather longer video today than the last couple of days, and I look forward to seeing you here tomorrow. I don't know what Saturdays are. I think I've just given them a sort of like a global kind of, you know, art for my creative heart, or whatever it was, art for my creative soul, time for my creative soul. So it's quite a broad thing. It's about creativity and doing things that perhaps are a little bit different to what I would ordinarily do. So I hope to see you then. Don't forget, if you've enjoyed the videos, and click the like button. It really helps to get my videos out to more people, as does if you hit the subscribe button. So thank you ever so much for everything. Take care now. Be creative. Bye-bye. Bye.